Okay, today we're going to create our first Delphi program. So to create your first Delphi program, you go to File, you go to New, and you got VCL Forms application. We create a form in Delphi. Your form sizes can be increased. If you go to the side, bottom right-hand side, there's a handle there. You can increase your form size. Choice is yours, but work within a space that's visible. Now, when this is the form on which you're going to put in your components that you're going to use for reading from Delphi and calculations. Our first program will be to find the sum of, okay, to display, reading your name and surname and to output your name and surname. Once you create your new application, you need to save it. So we go to Save All. Now, in order to save all, we need to find a folder. So you can initially create a folder and you save it in the folder. So I'm going to go to desktop for now. I'm going to make myself a new folder. It's not always advisable to do this on desktop, but I'm going to do this at desktop for now. So it's grade 10, IT, that is your work, and I'm going to say Delphi. That's the folder. I'm opening the folder. Now in your grade 10 folder, you can create new folders. So if this is my first program, I will call it program 1. But if you're not sure, then you can write the program name and surname. You can identify whatever program you want, you make a folder. So you right click, new folder, you make your folder. Now we need to open this folder and store this form that you're creating is going to be saved within this folder. So when you're saving, remember, we can save. So we're going to cancel, just to show you. We're going to File, we're going to save all. You can cancel at any time. You browse for where your folder is. Mine is on desktop. I'm going to grade 10 Delphi. I'm going inside program 1. That's where I'm going to. I went through the whole thing again. You could have done it, but I canceled to remind you. Now, when you're saving your program, you save it as 2 files. One is called a unit file that will contain your code. And then we're going to save it as your project, which is your entire Delphi code. So your unit file is, because we are working with name and surname, so we'll call it program. It's to do with name. And we use an _u to say it's a unit file. It says here Delphi unit. So we're going to save that. Now there's another save because we're saving it now as a project. So we'll call it the same name. Program, name. And this time it will be _p. _p because it is now a project. So we saved it as a name and as a unit and as a project. So if I minimize and open my very neat desktop. There's a program folder that we created, and that's all your files that were saved. That's all the files for one program that we're writing. And the program is to, we said input your name and surname and display. So going back to our form, to input your name and surname, we can give your program a label. Give it a label, a heading. So your label, there's a label component, but if you can't find it, we can simply put T or simply type in label. I'll be doing a label, not a T edit, it's a label. You just drag, you simply click and drag your label. On the left-hand side is your object inspector. Your object inspector will allow you to change the properties of your label. And the properties of your label are simple things like your caption. Now, caption is the name that's going to appear on the front that you see. So we'll say program to display name and surname. Simple program to display name and surname. I'm going to click out just to show you, right? This is program to display name and surname. If you click on it, that was just the caption. We can change the color. There's a color here. For example, red. Okay, your label color needs to. So it's under font. It's the wrong place I went to. Go to font. See, font means your style. Your font style. There's your font style. You can choose bold. You can choose this, increase the size. You can choose your font. Yeah, I'm going to drag this and place it back on the top, in the center. As you can choose your font here. Oh, there's a plus sign here. And the plus sign indicates there are more options underneath. So there's a minus sign now, indicates you've opened it up. The more options underneath, under font. One is the character set, the color. This is the color I'm supposed to be changing. That's your color. There's the red. Okay. The height, the writing style that you want. You can change the writing style here. You can change the size. You can also change whether you want it to be bold or italics. There's a plus here, it means there's more styles there. See, it's tick 4, saying that you want it to be bold. You also want it to be italic. Can you see the change? Right, that's your change for italics. So you have these options available. All the formatting of your component will be under Object Inspector. Now, here's also the name of the component you have used. So we're just going to focus on the left-hand side here. These are how you format it, and that's the name. Now, these labels can be each given a name. If you don't do that, if I choose another label, then it's going to be called label 1, label 2, but another label, label 3. Then they're not meaningful. So make the labels meaningful, we give them a name. So caption, there's two things. One is caption is what you see. And there's something called name here. There's a property called name. Name is the name of the label. It's called label 1. And your prefix that I've discussed with you is LBL. And this is your name. Sorry, this prefix, my mistake. This prefix should be called, it's not name, it's LBL. Heading, that's your heading. That's label heading. This should be called, for it, your caption is what you see. So I will say here, enter name. So that's the, basically what you're going to ask the person is to enter a name. I will make the font bigger again so you can see it. Let's just go to 14. As you got enter name, this can be the name for this, sorry, the caption for this can be enter surname, because we enter surname and name, colon, if you want to, for display purposes, make it the font bigger. So it's the same idea. Now, if I click on the plus sign here, I can change the font there, but I'm just doing it straight from here. This is the ellipse from straight from here. As you can see, these labels, if I click on it, there's a label highlighted. That's label 2. If I click here, it's label 3. Now this you can see is meaningful. I know that's a heading. So I would like to give these names. So names for your labels appear here. So it'll be LBL. And I can call that name. And I can call this LBL surname. To input the name and surname, I need a component that I can read from. So we're going to use a T-edit. You can type in the component name if you can't see it on your screen. There you get a T-edit. Then I have another T-edit. You can see on your left-hand side, the T-edits, they're called edit 1 and edit 2, which is not meaningful. So I need a name. So a name for the first one will be EDT name, because it's a component for your to read in your name. This will be named EDT surname. I do not need a caption here because I want it to be actually not visible. So I want it to be empty. To do that, to make it empty, there's an option called text. So for EDT components, we don't have a caption because we are not displaying something. We simply want it to be empty so you can enter something. So this reads in the name and surname. We need a button that will allow us to actually do the reading in. Because here you can type in your name and surname, but you need a button to execute the reading in of that. So I've got a button here. Now buttons cannot be just called button 1. We need a caption to tell us what this button is about. So I'm going to say displays name and surname. You can just simply say display, but to make it more meaningful, this is displays name and surname. Here again, you can change your font. If you want it oblique, choice is yours. There's your button. So if this button is going to display name and surname, the idea is where do we display it? We can put it into a, what we call a memo. There's one example. We can put it into a rich edit. That's another example of a display component. We're going to work with memo. So we assume they're going to enter information here, the user, and when we click display, you should display it in this component. If you're looking at our components here, at the moment, we don't have a name for buttons, so I'm going to call it BTN display. That's your name. BTN is your prefix for buttons to tell you that it's a button. So by simply looking at these components, I know this is a button, this is a T-edits, these are labels, and this is a memo. So I can call this name. It's for display, so mem display. MEM is the prefix for this. Now here too, we want this display empty. So there is no text option here. So for your memos to clear it, there are lines option because a memo has many lines. So we can go in there and we can delete the lines. So memo is empty. Now this is actually what the display, the graphical user interface for capturing your name and surname. I can go to file and I can go to save because it's done. There's also a save icon here that you can use to save. Now writing the code. To write code to input your name and surname, we have to write codes under buttons. To do that, we double click on your button and all the code goes in here. We need to read in a name and surname. So we need to store the name and surname in memory locations or variables. So if you go to the end, you press enter and you type in VAR. You can see it's blue. Blue is reserved words. They stand for a purpose in Delphi. You can't use them as variable names. Now, for our purposes, variable names are your memory locations we spoke about in pseudocode. So for your first one is your name. We normally will say name, comma, surname, because we say input name, surname, and they both of type string. Now, what we do special is to remind us that this is a string. So put a little s there, and we use capital letter N. The little s is to remind us that this variable and that variable are going to store strings, the little s in the front. it is not compulsory. It's going to work without this. You can, whatever name you use here for your variable, it will work. But this is the convention you need to use. The little s to remind you that these are strings. So how do I read and store the name? So if you go to your design, I need to read from this. And that's called EDT name. I need to read from here as well, EDT surname. So if I go to code, you can go to code or you can double click on your button. So go to code. I need to store my name. Colon equals to, because you're going to store it into it, right? This is like assigning to S name, the name. So I'm reading it from an EDT component. So your EDT component is, you're going to type the whole thing for now. EDT name dot, you see it's coming up, dot text, because you're getting, as you're typing it, it comes up. You're going to get the text. So you're reading from your text box, from your EDT component, a text, which is your name. And for surname, you're also going to read from it, but it will be your EDT surname. And I will show you the shortcuts to it after you've typed your first program, but EDT surname dot text, you'll see it coming up. Now we need to display. This is just simply reading in, this is reading in a name and it's reading in a surname. To display it, we display it in what we call the, let's go back and check. Now design, we're displaying it here. It's called a mem display. Now, whenever you're using components that you have created in Delphi, we can type the whole thing down if you remember the name. But if you hold the control key down and you press the space bar, it gives you a list of components you have and you can select it. Double click, you select. Or you simply just type it in. Dot. Now you have to remember this. You're going to add a line to your to your output. And so we're adding a line. So what line are we adding? We're adding the name and surname. Remember in our pseudocode, we will say input name, input surname, and when we output surname, name, comma, surname. So here we simply output name, comma, surname. Now this should work, but it's not going to work perfectly. We'll show you just now, but this should work. And my close bracket. So to run this, okay, to run this, there's a little green arrow you see here. If you click on this, and you don't forget you need to save. This will save all. All right, so your green arrow, it will run. Okay, we've got some errors. What error do I have? Sorry. You have to use a plus sign here, not a comma. That's a plus sign. It picks up. Okay, let me just show you that again. If you're running something and if you made a mistake, it tells you there's an error. Right. It doesn't always, the errors are explained at the bottom here, but it's not always clear for you because you're learning it about Delphi now. But you know that you did something wrong. Right. You separate, if you're displaying more than one thing, you separate it with a plus, not a comma. In pseudocode, we did separate it with a comma. Right, so if I put the first name, we call him Harry. And what do you think the surname is? Potter. Right, so if I say display name and surname, we've got Harry Potter. What's the problem with the output? There is no space. So I'm going to stop the program from running. Here's your stop button. To add a space, I simply put a single quote, space, single quote, and plus. So it'll display the name, space, surname. So you have to stop running the last time and then you run again. So now I'll display Tom, bird, thumb, Tom, thumb. Using Tom, thumb, you display Tom, thumb. So any name you put in here, It's simply going to read these two, whatever you type in, store them in the variables or memory locations, and it will get it back from there and it will display. So that's the first program to, or your first program to input two strings and to display a string.